Thank you. Ana Stolić napisala je rad na engleskom, tako da ću ja saopštiti rad na engleskom, kako je već napisano. So, between the politics of collective female identity and nationalism, women's movements were a significant political and social phenomenon in European countries, Russia and America at the beginning of the 20th century. They emerged with the aim of achieving legal, economic, social, and political equality between men and women. Members of social democratic parties had their own organizations, and their activism was conducted under the supervision of their male party comrades. In addition to leftist organizations, two powerful international women's civic organizations were established. The International Council of Women, founded in 1888 in Washington, opened its doors to a wide range of women's associations, from literary clubs to societies for moral reform and the fight against alcoholism. Its leadership, seeking to attract as many supporters as possible, avoided taking positions on contentious issues, one of which was the struggle for women's suffrage. Due to this stance, a group of dissatisfied members decided to create an organization that would focus exclusively on advocating for women's political rights, especially the right to vote. At a congress held in Berlin in 1904, they established the International Women's Suffrage Alliance. Within the alliance, a clear feminist identity was formed, aimed at achieving full civil, political, and economic rights for women. Both organizations rapidly expanded their membership in the years leading up to World War I. Their appeal was based on vigorous advocacy of their declared goals among various women's associations at the national level. Although both organizations emphasized in their programmatic documents that they welcomed women of all races, nations, religions, and classes, in practice, they operated primarily through collaborations with national committees in European countries, the United States, Canada, and Australia. The national structure of both the Council and the Alliance, rooted in the idea that the sum of national bodies constituted the international character of the organization, was not favorable to all interested groups and associations, particularly those in multinational monarchies. The leadership of these organizations did not accommodate alternative forms of representation, especially for various national associations within the Habsburg monarchy. In an era of rising nationalism and the strengthening of nation states, the organization adhered to the position that only unified committees representing nation states could shape international women's organizations. This stance caused uncertainty and tensions, especially in Austria-Hungary, with its asymmetrical state system, but also in the peripheral regions of the German and Russian empires. Before its London Congress in 1899, the International Council made considerable efforts to establish a joint Austrian Council in the Habsburg monarchy that would include associations from all parts of the state, including Hungary. However, representatives of non-German Austrian ethnic groups rejected this idea. Ultimately, in 1902, the Union of Austrian Women was formed, consisting predominantly of German Austrian organizations, with the inclusion of just one Slovenian and one Polish association. The alliance, however, showed greater understanding for certain national movements that were tied to women's movements. The leadership of the alliance developed specific strategies that went beyond mere reflections of Anglo-American conceptions of state and nation. Given the increasingly tense international political situation and the atmosphere of impending national conflicts, both organizations in the first decade of the 20th century adopted documents mandating non-involvement in current political disputes and maintaining political neutrality. This policy led to significant disappointment within the movements at the start of the war in 1914, including discontent with the leadership of the Serbian National Women's Alliance. In addition to emphasizing the concept of nation-states, the leadership of the international women's movement promoted the idea of unity and solidarity among all women worldwide. From this emerged the ideology and political platform of sisterhood, which the leadership of the alliance presented as indisputable. The policy of universal sisterhood was built on the notion of a shared subjection of all women globally and the presumed uniformity of their interests. This stance, however, was inherently contentious given the power dynamics and hierarchy within the movement. Research has highlighted tensions between the rhetoric of universal sisterhood and the actual differences among movement members arising from their diverse cultural, class, racial, national, and religious backgrounds. The movement was predominantly led by white Protestant women from Anglo-American social and cultural circles. Motherhood held a central place in the sisterhood platform. The essentials viewed that women's biological capacity for reproduction made them the guardians of the human race and mothers of nations. As noted, the process of integrating patriotic women's organizations closely linked to national movements in the Habsburg monarchy into the international women's movement varied widely. In Hungary, during the 19th century, discourse on women's issues emerged in debates in scientific journals and works of fiction. The driving force behind these discussions was Takács Eva. Countess Blanka Teleki in the mid-19th century advocated for women's right to university education, suffrage, and improved conditions for rural teachers, while Vilma Hugonai, the first female physician in Hungary, campaigned for educational reforms benefiting women at the end of the century. Hungary was home to numerous humanitarian, educational, and religious women's organizations, and in 1896 the National Association of Female Employees was founded with the primary goal of achieving complete social and political emancipation for women. The organization was led by feminist Rosa Schwimmer, who, alongside Vilma Glücklich, established the Federation of Hungarian Women's Associations in 1904. Unlike other national organizations within the monarchy, the Hungarian organization, due to the existing constitutional framework, became a full-fledged member of the International Women's Suffrage Alliance and the International Council of Women. Additionally, Rosa Schwimmer maintained an extensive network of international contacts, particularly with leaders of the International Women's Suffrage Alliance. Thanks to these connections, Budapest hosted the 4th Congress of the International Women's Suffrage Alliance in 1913. Women from other ethnic groups within Hungary had their own humanitarian and educational associations. Among the Serbian community, a solid level of economic and cultural development contributed to a more favorable positions for women. Serbs in what is now Vojvodina achieved church school autonomy, civil and religious equality, and the right to establish primary and secondary schools. Under Hungarian civil law, women were not under the guardianship of their husbands. They had legal capacity, inheritance rights, and the freedom to manage their father's property and their share of joint marital assets. From the late 1860s, Serbian women's charitable cooperatives were established in towns, small cities, and villages with the aim of preserving domestic crafts and improving the economic position of women. These cooperatives strongly supported the founding of secondary schools for girls and published their own periodical, Ženski Svet, women's world. In Hungary, there were 22 Serbian women's charitable cooperatives as well as educational cooperative based in Budapest. The largest cooperative was Zadruga Srpkinja Novosatkinja, charitable cooperative of Serbian women from Novi Sad, led by Savka Subotic. Subotic was an undisputed leader of the Serbian women's movement in Hungary and a highly influential figure in women's organizations in the Kingdom of Serbia. Another prominent individual was Milica Tomic, the daughter of Svetozar Miletic and the wife of Jasha Tomic, politician, journalist, and leader of the Serbian People's Liberal Party and later the Serbian Radical Party in Vojvodina. As the owner and editor of the journal Žena, Woman in 1911, Tomic advocated feminist ideas. Members of the Hungarian community in Novi Sad founded the Maria Dorotea Society in 1891 with the aim of improving the education and upbringing of girls. The society's founder and president was Adel Nemezanyi, if I said correctly, and its membership consisted primarily of Hungarian women. In the Kingdom of Serbia, the humanitarian organization Žensko društvo, Women's Society, had been active since the 1870s. Over several decades, it established a number of successful institutions, accumulated significant capital, and gained considerable prestige. The organization operated under the patronage of a female member of the ruling Obrenović dynasty and maintained close ties with the state. In the early 20th century, new organizations such as Society of Princess Ljubica and Circle of Serbian Sisters emerged with a pronounced patriotic and national character. Their primary mission was to support Serbian schools, churches, monasteries in the remaining territories of the Ottoman Empire, particularly in Kosovo, Metohija, and Macedonia. These organizations aligned their efforts with the state's foreign policy interests. Kolo Srpskih sestara, through its political activities and rapid expansion, became the most prominent women's organization in Serbia. The election of Savka Subotic as its first president, aside from reflecting her esteemed reputation, indicated the leadership's ambition to unify the Serbian women's national movement on both sides of the Sava and Danube rivers. The contact and cooperation among women's national organizations in Hungary began with the presentation of folk handicrafts. The first was seen at the Zemaljska izložba ženske radinosti, national exhibition of women's handicrafts in Budapest in 1881, and later at a display of folk handicrafts from the Serbian community in Vojvodina, organized by the Charitable Association of Serbian Women from Novi Sad in 1884. After these events, Savka Subotic was invited to join the committee for the Croatian-Slavonian section of an exhibition in Pest in 1886, an invitation extended to her by Ban Kun Hedervari. At the Millennium Exhibition in 1896, the works of the charitable associations of Serbian women attracted significant attention, and a considerable commercial success was achieved. Subotic was in contact with the president of the alliance, Carrie Chapman Catt, as well as with Rosika Schwimmer, Kate Schriemacher, and Russian lady Gubarevich. Several years before the Alliance Congress in Budapest, at the invitation of Hungarian feminists, she gave a lecture in Pest on the position of women in Serbia. The leading representatives of the alliance in Hungary also had contacts with Milica Tomic. She had correspondence with Schwimmer in which the sisterly form of address was used. During the preparations for the Alliance Congress in Budapest in 1913, Rosika Schwimmer sent invitation letters to the Serbian women in Vojvodina and the Serbian National Women's Alliance in Belgrade. In the letter, she expressed the desire for women of other nationalities from Hungary to attend the Congress, especially sisters, the Serb women. Citation, "We want to greet as many Serb women as we can, and we assure our Serb sisters that we will receive them warmly and with great care, so let them join our Congress in the largest possible number. The political relations in the dual monarchy influenced women's activism in various ways. Leading representatives of women's organizations from Zagreb, Zofka Kveder and Stefania Vimpulšek, wanted to establish an organization that would participate in the Congress in Budapest, but they encountered opposition from their husbands, Serbs and Croats, due to their hostility towards Hungarian politics. The Congress of the International Women's Suffrage Alliance held in Budapest in June was one of the largest and most significant gatherings of feminists. It saw the participation of 3,000 delegates from around the world, representing all social classes and various professional backgrounds, and is considered the biggest event in the women's movement before World War I. Savka Subotic was the representative of the Serbian women. She gave a lecture on the role of women in history. The Serbian National Women's Union did not send more delegates as the Second Balkan War had soon begun. The president of the alliance, Mrs. Chapman-Cat, sent greetings to the women from Serbia and Vojvodina, expressing her regret that more Serbian women could not attend the Congress. She hoped that they would join in greater numbers, citing for they, as daughters of such a heroic nation, should step into the ranks of cultural fighters for women's interests and thus be worthy daughters of such a heroic nation and their noble husbands. At the beginning of the 20th century, the demands of women were predominantly formulated under the auspices of national states and national movements. Therefore, it is not surprising that the issue of women's rights and national interests went hand in hand. As a result, women's rights were presented as part of the collective national identity, rather than as individual rights. The sisterhood policy advocated by International Women's Organization was seen as a path toward achieving an international collective identity that would transcend political, social, and cultural differences among its members. However, it became evident that any disruption in the international political scene, and there were many before 1914, led to crises within the movement and divergences among its members. A part of its membership began to abandon internationalism and shifted their support toward national issues, while some representatives focused on organizing the peace movement. And conclusion. This division reflected the growing tensions within the broader feminist movement, where national priorities increasingly took precedence over international solidarity, and differing views on the role of women in peace and national struggles led to fragmentation. Some activities aligned with national causes, while others, particularly those committed to pacifism, sought to redirect in energy toward promoting peace and stability on a global scale. Thank you.
Many thanks, Stolić.